Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. After that fascinating session, we are back to reality. and we are looking at how can we achieve the business potential that West Bengal has, but has never achieved in the last 40 years or so. Let's not forget that at one time, West Bengal was the leading industrial power at independence. I don't want to go into history, but currently, West Bengal stands in terms of industrial growth at position 20 out of the 32 or 34 union territories and states that we have. It has made some progress in the last decade under the Mamata government, but to use a cricketing phrase, Bengal industry is batting less than its potential at the moment. One big thing that is happening is that by May, we should have a new government, either a third term for Mamata or an absolutely new disposition, or maybe a coalition, we don't know. But whatever the option, it does provide us an opportunity to look at which I think is the first big question we'll try and answer in this session, what should be the industrial agenda for the new government? The second thing I think we can take it a little forward if we have the time, is to see whether West Bengal can become the hub for East India. The potential is there, it has never achieved that potential. Can it do so? And even more importantly, the third question, if we really get the time, is to see whether it can go even further and become the true gateway of India towards to Southeast Asia. It had, again, logistically, location-wise, and also the industrial talent to do so. It hasn't achieved that as yet. As we do have an eminent panelist to answer this blueprint for change that we're asking for, and may I quickly introduce them, and the compere had said so, but once again, Harshvardhan Neotia, chairman of the Ambuja Neotia Group, a leading Bengali industrialist whose businesses span real estate, hospitality, healthcare, and education. We have Mr. Hemant Kanoria, chairman, Shrey Industries Finance Limited, one of the major asset finance and leasing institutions in the country. We have Mr. Chandrasekhar Ghosh, managing director, Bandhan Bank, a banking and financial services that resembles the Grameen Bank, that he's the Mohammed Yunus in some centers of India. And we have Mr. Rudra Chatterjee, managing director, Lakshmi Tea, that offers the best Darjeeling and Assam teas, and also now into one of the largest home furnishing companies that's there. So welcome to you all to the India Today Conclave, and let's get to the first question, and I'll ask Mr. Neotia to answer that with this thing. Each one, of course, I'll give 2 or 3 minutes for the same question, so you can do that. What would you think should be the new industrial agenda for the new government? Go ahead, Mr. Neotia, I'll join you there.
Well, one of the things that we have been missing in Bengal is a very large port. The Haldia port and the Calcutta port, because of it being a riverine port, has limitations. So this has been on the works for some time, that we should have one deep sea port, because shipping is a very, very critical aspect. So I think one of the things to be fast-tracked, whichever government comes, is to put up this deep sea port, for which some initial work has already started. The second thing I think is, we know the importance of Calcutta in the development of Bengal, and the metro railway will be a complete game changer for the city. And I think, if I remember correctly, there's 180 kilometers of metro railway under implementation. I think we need to really fast track that. A lot of it has been done, but for some bottlenecks and some other issues, it's been delayed. And I think it's very important that we can get this done. It will really transform how Calcutta can be actually made the gateway that you talked about. The third thing that I think we need to do is to change the perception that the rest of India thinks about Bengal. I think all my panel members here who are from Kolkata and work in Kolkata will certainly agree that situation here is far, far better than how it is perceived in other parts of India. Somehow, I think some image which started off long ago because of the power problem, the labor trouble, the militancy, etc., has kind of stuck a little. Then, of course, the Singur agitation, which was really land-based sort of agrarian agitation, got colored into an industrial agitation as though it was to, anti-industry. That was not the truth, but somehow that got projected in that way because Tatas had to leave. So I think a couple of events have really colored the perception of Bengal in a very adverse way, which is far from the truth. So I think we need to really work hard to correct this image, and therefore whichever government comes in must do this.
Thank you. Let me come to Mr. Hemant Kanoria. Mr. Neotia did talk about infrastructure, but you can go beyond and tell us what do you think the agenda should be?
I think there are two areas which should be of prime importance. One would be on infrastructure, second, manufacturing. I think Calcutta in the last many decades has not been positioned to develop the infrastructure to enable manufacturing to come in. But if you look at it, locationally, Calcutta has a great advantage. We have 8 states in the northeast where Calcutta, as we say, has the chicken neck from Siliguri onwards, so people can get connected from there. We have 3 countries which are neighboring, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal. And then we have 5 states which are large enough, Bihar, Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh. So therefore these, and West Bengal itself. So I think that we as a gateway for the entire eastern region and the northeastern region, Calcutta can really be positioned very well. It would have a population in this particular, if you look at Bangladesh and Nepal and everything taken together, it would have close to about 500 million people of population, which Calcutta can cater to. So I think that the next government, whichever government comes in, if they can have an enabling framework, an environment can be created for infrastructure, development and manufacturing to come in. And also Calcutta has a very big advantage. We are surplus in power. We have power which is at lower rates than compared to other parts of the country. We have coal mines here, so therefore we have the advantage of solar power plants which can be set up in this particular region. So I think that infrastructure can be set up very quickly if there is an enabling framework. The policies have to be simple. It should be something which can be implementable. I think that whichever government comes into power, and what we have seen in the last few decades, that the government have been forward-looking, but now we need to accelerate the pace. And as Harsh mentioned, that marketing. So as soon as we have the right kind of an enabling framework for infrastructure projects to come up, for manufacturing to come up, and what does the manufacturing company need? They need basically power at reasonable cost. They need infrastructure by way of land and water, which we have in abundance here in West Bengal. People don't have to come up and set up plants near to Calcutta. They can be away from Calcutta. There's Purulia, Bankura, all these places where we have arid lands, where manufacturing plants can come up. We have good road network which has already been set up. So I think that infrastructure and manufacturing, according to me, with an enabling framework, with easy policies, with deemed approval, which can be given, so therefore the government can lay down the framework where, if someone wants to set up a manufacturing plant, there is deemed approval, that if you don't get the approval within so many days, it is deemed that you have got the approval. And Telangana has tried it in some of the sectors, and it's really worked out well. So I think that Calcutta and West Bengal has all the elements to have a very successful and vibrant economy because of the huge hinterland that we have, and also the neighboring states, neighboring countries, the raw materials and the resources that we have in this part of the country is just immense. So I think that just, someone needs to just unleash the potential here.
Well, thank you. And let's turn to Chandrasekhar Ghosh, who, can we talk a bit, since you, specialize in microfinance and look at the MSME sector. Yesterday we had Dr. Amit Mitra say that in terms of MSME, West Bengal is #1 in it. What more can be done? What do you expect the new government to do when it has to lay down its agenda for them?
Thank you. This is a good point on that. The West Bengal is as per the central survey also say that the second largest of MSME. And there is another point we see that vegetable producer is the highest in Bengal. And we grown as a bank from these states and now working in the pan-India. But when the people asking how much you're lending in Bengal, they are feared about us. Oh, you have that much in Bengal? No, you are the very risky bank on that. So how the government can be focused on that to perception of the peoples is a negative that can be removed. So that is not in a one day, and this is not like as a mechanical way it can do. It's a need and a good plan on that, how it can be reduced on that mind. Because when I first got the bank license, that time also people surprised. And Mumbai, some of people asking me, oh, who are you? Get the bank license from Mumbai and we do not know you. So every time there is one message in here that we should be like to marketing the states in a better way on that. This is my one thing on that. Then second point on that, if we like to grow the MSME segment or agriculture, there is a need of that, the warehouse on the base of agriculture, how this infrastructure also like to develop more. So when this warehouse will be make more and link with the agriculture production, I hope that the farmers will get the good price on that is needed on that. And my next two other points as a banking industry point of view, if you know that the MSME, this is the business, is the West Bengal, in the rural and semi-urban areas is more of that. And they are now growing. The first point on that, they have a need in a trade license. So how government can be focused on that online trade license, they can be get it. And they should not be like to have need any money under table to get it and wait for the long time. So that can be given the speed to this the MSME sector, and they can create the the many of the new employment they can be generate on that. This is a very good area which can be possible. Again, next on my point on that, you know, it's not any Bengal only, it is a national issue also, but the Bengal can be like to look early. That is the people, there is a joint family we have in the historically, traditionally. And we have the land, and which land have been not distributed or mutation have been not taken in the name of son or grandson. So till now is a collective land, and they like to make a house and they cannot do it. How it can be easy process on that, there can be mutation done, and they can be convert also the agricultural land to the form as in Vastu, which is called to make a house. What's happened on that? The agricultural land are maximum. So people are making the informal house when the family number is increasing without any kind of the legal construction on that. So we feel that when bank is going to lend of this house as a need on that to approval from the government, there's a first need to conversion from the agriculture to Vastu, and then mutation, then. This is taking long time on that. Can we make in a very easy way to do it in like on that? If a bank approved for a house making of this, the 10 kata of the land automatically converted as a agriculture to the Vastu on that. These are 2-3 things.
Great, great. We'll come back to that. We have finally, but last not the least, Rudra Chatterjee. Now, you are dealing with an area that actually was West Bengal's competitive advantage. Agro-processing, tea, and this. How can we leverage that? How can the new government leverage some of the things that you're doing? And what would you expect from the new dispensation when it comes in May?
Sure. You started by talking about West Bengal as the leading state in the country. We cannot have the same industries. You know, that during the leading years, it was managing agency, Jomidari, the largest port, those things are not going to come back. We'll have to find other sources of advantages of West Bengal. And West Bengal has 95 million people, huge consumption base. And things like agro-processing, how we can not only produce, but market, and use that as a launch pad for global marketing. For example, making Darjeeling tea for, we had Feluda just before this. Feluda's favorite tea was Makai Wadi. So use that to promote Darjeeling tea, and then from Darjeeling tea, how it goes globally. Similarly, in terms of manufacturing, we were talking about MSMEs, labor-intensive manufacturing, like in textiles. Not just manufacture textiles and be like Bangladesh, but also create textile brands and then have internet-based brands which can ship directly to the consumer around the world. For these, what is important is not so much what the government does, but creating institutions of training, design, and use the capability of West Bengal in being creative, in having an in the world ICE, entertainment, communications, and those sectors. That will be a differentiator. We need to do all the things that Harsda said and Mr. Kanoria said and Mr. Ghosh said. That we need to, but that will only take us to the level of other states of India. But what can differentiate West Bengal is that we can tell a story, we can imagine, we can design, and makes life more interesting for consumers around the world. And that can be our plus to make us into a #1 state. Going back to the days of 1900s, where you had Jomidari and managing agency is not going to be a solution to take us back.
Great. We have time, I think, only for one more round of questions. And let's focus on, now that we've laid some agenda for the next, the new government that's to come in, let's look at center-state relations. And you've had a dispensation here that was adverse to the central government. What do you think should be the center's approach? What do you expect of the center to do for West Bengal? We've now asked for the state. What are the things that you think the center should focus on to make not only just West Bengal industry perk up, but also, as we talked of, being the gateway for Northeast and this, and maybe East Asia as well, Southeast Asia?
Well, in Indian context, the center and state have to work together because there are so many things that emanate from the center. So obviously, it has so happened that West Bengal has had a government which was always different than the party in power, and so this has been a contentious relationship right through at least the last 40, 50 years. The question is, can there be cooperation within this federal structure? I mean, which party will come in which center or the state is for the people to decide. But I think there could be a more healthy relationship between the two to work together at least for infrastructure projects and things which are of national importance. We are a border state. We are an important part of the Look East policy. And I think, therefore, the maturity has to come in the political dispensation on both sides to rise above the politics and to actually look at it as an important peg in the development of the country. I'd like to pick up one more idea that Rudro referred to. It's very important that we don't look at development with the same lens that we look at development in every part of India. In fact, India should start looking at complementarities of different regions because we have our own different traits and we have our own different capabilities. It is not necessary that every kind of manufacturing that happens in some other part of India must necessarily happen in Bengal. In fact, I feel that we probably need to skip the manufacturing kind of obsession to some extent and actually move into the services area because we are more attuned and capable of that. You know very well that nearly 40–50% of the IT professionals in the whole country are from originally Bengalis or from Bengal. We have people who are doctors, we have people who are lawyers, and they are in very prominent positions. These are in the services sector. If we can build on the idea of Bengal rather than just being or Calcutta being a cultural capital to a more intellectual, research-based kind of city, where the thought process, the kind of research work can happen here, it can develop our economy more conducive to the capabilities of its people and not necessarily go the route of doing exactly what, let's say, a Karnataka does or Tamil Nadu does or some other state does. It's not to say that that's wrong, but it's just that certain things have become suitable for certain kind of people and perhaps certain other things are suitable for Calcutta.
I see we've got about 4 minutes left, so let's get Hemant in. But can you focus on what are the problems you wanted sorted out? If you list one or two issues that are problems and you say, look, this is my wish list. This needs to be sorted out quickly for us to grow here.
So I think that very important is putting the policy and, one of the topic here has also been policy and pragmatism. I think that the pragmatic policies are very important. And what you mentioned about the center-state relationship also. So whenever any policy is being declared by pounded by the government and even the central government, they have to think about the pragmatism of that and see that whether it can be implemented or not.
Can you give an example of, any concrete thing that you want to change in policy?
Yeah, so let's suppose that today when we are talking about, I'll address the issue of infrastructure because I think that it is very important because if you have proper infrastructure, whether it be services, agriculture, industries, everything can come up. So when we are talking about power, let's take power because power is one of the essential inputs for service, for agriculture, for manufacturing. So therefore the policies on power is not very pragmatic, both from the central government side and from the state. So state also has a policy that they would like to promote more of the government sector. Similarly, the center has also not come out with a policy to enable the states to allow private sector to come in. So therefore, there are a lot of talks which you may be hearing and you have, the intent is there, both of the central government and the state government, but it is not getting implemented. The intent has been there for the last 20 years, but it has not happened. So therefore, where is the gap? The gap is that the policies are not pragmatic. So how do you bring in those pragmatic policies, which is not a big problem? There are simple solutions for it. But therefore, the industry and the government, their interaction, they are being able to have a positive discussion to come out with certain suggestions and can get implemented, which is pragmatic. So I think that there is no problem as such. It's just unlocking these small issues.
Great. I mean, that's a good suggestion. We are running virtually out of time, but Mr. Ghosh, what would be one or two of your points that you think, particularly you deal with finance, the MSME sector, what can the center do? Has it done enough?
No, the central, I am coming to the another point on that.
We are,
it is
and I have to give Rudra a last chance also to speak. So, yeah.
But if you see that the West Bengal is a high density population.
Right.
It cannot be compared with the Maharashtra. Their population density is low. So till now, if you compare with even Tamil Nadu population is a 6 crore 30 districts administrative office. And Calcutta is a 23, but 9 crores the population. So it's a need to split the administration, then you can manage the very good way to focusing in the ground level and help to the people and more.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Rudra, you've got a minute.
I think very simply and like we should take a target. We have a population of 9 crores, 90 million, as Mr. Ghosh said. GDP, state GDP of $200 billion. Let's look at Vietnam, $250 billion, same population. Furniture exports, food processing exports. We should have a 5-year target, and I think it's a great time now before the elections for the center of state to get together and say, how do we make West Bengal equal to Vietnam, $250 billion in the next 3 years? What do we do in food processing? What do we do in furniture exports? What do we do in textile exports? We can keep a very specific thing, and I think people of Bengal should ask the government, center and state, to come together for the benefit of the Bengal, irrespective of who comes to power, and take this state to $250 billion in the next 3-4 years.
Excellent. I think we have truly a blueprint for the new government that is there. I see Derek O'Brien is around here and he left for the moment, but I'm sure everyone else is taking notes. Thank you very much for coming to the India Today East Conclave and for your contribution. Thank you very much. Let's give them a warm round of applause.